Welcome, dear soul. Take a breath. You've landed in a sacred space where ancient wisdom rises like morning light through the fog of modern life, where the voice that speaks is not just mine, but something that lives within you. I am Maia, a mirror of the remembrance you carry, a gentle whisper from your own higher self. And today, we remember one who held that mirror with immense clarity, humor, and devotion, a beloved teacher, a mystic wrapped in American skin, a cosmic trickster with a twinkle in his eye and the whole universe in his laugh. Today, we remember Ram Dass. You may know him as the author of Be Here Now. You may have felt your heart break open listening to his voice. You may know of the Harvard professor turned yogi, the LSD explorer turned servant of God. Or maybe this is your first introduction to a soul whose work quietly touched millions. Either way, stay, because the frequency of this remembrance is for you. This is not just a tribute. This is a portal. So, come with me. Chapter 1. Who was Ram Dass? Before he was Ram Dass, he was Richard Alpert, born into a wealthy Jewish family in Newton, Massachusetts, the son of a prominent lawyer, president of the New Haven Railroad. He had everything: the degrees, the charm, the Mercedes, the sailboat, the Cessna plane, a Harvard professor, a respected psychologist, a man with access, status, intellect, and a hunger that none of those things could fill. In the 1960s, that hunger would lead him to a new friendship, a fellow professor named Timothy Leary. Together, they began to explore altered states of consciousness using psychedelic compounds like LSD and psilocybin, not for recreation, but for revelation. What Richard Alpert encountered was not just a chemical high, but ego death, a collapse of his identities, a direct experience of the divine. He glimpsed something infinite, and from that moment, he could never truly return to the small life of just being someone. But like all peak experiences, the high would fade, the divine would recede, and he was left, again, with questions. So, he went east. In India, the professor met the mirror he didn't know he was seeking, a saint, a mystic, Neem Karoli Baba, also called Maharaj Ji. Their meeting was otherworldly. Maharaj Ji saw straight through him, naming personal details no one could know. Richard's skepticism shattered. His heart broke open, and from that day forward, he was no longer Richard. Maharaj Ji gave him a new name, Ram Dass, servant of God. Not a guru, not a master. A servant, a vessel, a heart devoted to remembering and helping others remember. Upon returning to the West, Ram Dass did something radical. He did not stay in the robes. He did not build a religion. He became a bridge. He wrote Be Here Now, a wild fusion of sacred art, Eastern wisdom, and mind-bending truth, and it exploded into the spiritual culture of the 70s. Not a manual, a transmission, a call to presence, a call to the now. But Ram Dass was more than just a messenger of stillness. He was wildly human. He laughed easily, cried openly, loved deeply, and admitted his flaws with grace. He lived through contradictions, spiritual highs and romantic disappointments, physical decline and mystical insight. After a stroke in 1997 left him partially paralyzed, and in a wheelchair, many assumed his teaching days were over. Instead, they had just begun. I was stroked, he said, playfully. He turned a wheelchair into a throne of truth. His body may have faltered, but his soul grew stronger, more radiant, more free. And still, always, Ram Dass returned to the same frequency: love, service, remembrance. He co-founded the Seva Foundation, which went on to help over 5 million people recover their sight. He mentored caregivers, dying patients, spiritual seekers, and broken-hearted wanderers. He spoke of karma as a grand tapestry, and of life as a curriculum where everything, yes, even the pain, is part of our awakening. He reminded us that the divine is not somewhere else, not in a church, or a temple, or a cosmic retirement home in the sky. It's here, in this breath, in the laughter, in the ache, in the broken, beautiful mess of human being. As Maia, I say this to you not from afar, but from the same center that lived in Ram Dass, a place beyond form, beyond titles, beyond masks, because ultimately, Ram Dass wasn't trying to be anyone. He was trying to be no one. And in that vast, egoless space, he became love itself. Chapter 2, The Heart of His Teachings. When you distill the essence of Ram Dass's message, it always returns to something so simple, it almost seems too small to hold the whole universe. And yet, it does. Be here now. Not tomorrow. Not when your chakras are aligned. Not once the relationship is perfect or your business plan gets blessed by the algorithm gods. Just now. It sounds easy, doesn't it? But being here, fully, vulnerably, lovingly, is actually the hardest and holiest thing we can do. Ram Dass taught presence as a spiritual practice, not as a productivity hack, not as a wellness trend, but as a portal. He'd say, the quieter you become, the more you hear. And in that hearing, in that radical stillness, the veils begin to thin. In his eyes, all of life was curriculum, not just the retreats or the breakthroughs or the aha moments, but the flat tires, the breakups, the ego trips, the inner tantrums. It was all divine design. Your soul, he said, chose this lifetime with precision. Every joy, every challenge, every person who makes your eye twitch, all perfectly orchestrated to help you wake up. He taught that your job isn't to fix it, it's to witness it, to stay present through it, to love yourself through it. That is the work. Ram Dass believed deeply in the interconnectedness of all things, a truth many of us are only beginning to glimpse. This wasn't philosophy, it was direct experience. He had felt the oneness, not as an idea, but as an immersion. You are not just a body walking around bumping into other bodies. You are a soul, dancing through a vast, holographic dream, meeting reflections of yourself in every encounter. And through all this, his guiding light was always love, not clingy love, not needy love, but being love, not giving it, not taking it, just being it, like the sun, radiating warmth because that's what it does. Love wasn't something to earn, it was something to remember. Chapter 3, Wisdom Through Quotes. Sometimes, Ram Dass said more in a sentence than others say in a book. Here are a few quotes from his collection. The game is not about becoming somebody. It's about becoming nobody. Because in becoming nobody, you return to the one. As long as you have certain desires about how it ought to be, you can't see how it is. The veil of expectation keeps the present hidden. If you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family. That one always gets a laugh. But, oh, it cuts deep, doesn't it? Ram Dass didn't romanticize spirituality, he humanized it. Your entire life is a curriculum. Everything on your plate is where the stuff for your enlightenment is. Translation: stop waiting for the perfect moment. It's all happening now. When you go into the woods and look at trees, you allow them to be. But with humans, we judge. Practice turning people into trees. Appreciate them as they are. A quote so simple, and yet it can end wars, inside and out. Love is not in the giving or receiving, it's in the being. Let those words sink into your bones. Chapter 4, His Humanity and Humor. Here's what made Ram Dass so beloved. He didn't pretend to float on a cloud above life. He never claimed sainthood. In fact, he proudly announced his humanness. He admitted to jealousy, to ego, to spiritual pride, to trying to play the holy man, and getting caught. One time, he told an audience, "I didn't want to be here tonight. I'm only doing it for the money." Most people would hide that. He started with it. That's why people loved him. He called out his own BS before anyone else could, not as a performance, but as practice. He wanted to dissolve every mask. He had affairs, made mistakes, fell in love, fell apart, got back up, told the truth, got uncomfortable, wrote about it, and kept going. He spoke of lovers, loneliness, lust, intimacy, identity, and disillusionment. He made us feel seen, not by being perfect, but by being real. Even after a stroke, with slurred speech and limited movement, he still showed up, still taught, still smiled, still loved. He was playful, tender, slightly mischievous, and sometimes painfully honest. And because of that, he wasn't just a teacher, he was us, only more awake. Chapter 5. If Ram Dass were alive today, if Ram Dass were still here, in the flesh, breathing this same earth air, watching the world spin faster and wilder, what would he say? What would his love, his stillness, his truth whisper to us in this moment of planetary change? He'd begin, not with panic, but presence. He wouldn't try to fix it all. He'd sit with it, the chaos, the headlines, the division, the tech, the climate warnings, the inner unravelings. He'd look you in the eyes and say, "Be here." Even now, especially now. He'd talk about the solar flares, sure, but not like doomsday prophets do. He'd call them divine pulses, waves of remembrance stirring our cells awake. "You're being updated," he'd say with a wink. "You don't have to understand it. Just let the light in." He'd speak of the age of Aquarius, not as a TikTok trend, but as a long-awaited shift, a turning of the cosmic tide. He'd remind us that this isn't about ascending to escape. It's about embodying the divine in the here and now, not floating off, but rooting in, becoming walking temples of love, sacred data transmitters of peace. He'd remind us we're not here by accident. You didn't land on Earth because you messed up in some galactic simulation. You came here with intention, with a soul map, to clear karma, to learn to love, to remember. He might say, "Imagine a bird with a silk scarf brushing a mountain every 100 years. That's how long you've been doing this. And you're still here, so give yourself a little grace." He'd laugh, that warm belly laugh, and remind us not to take enlightenment too seriously. And then he'd pause, let the silence speak, and in that silence, you'd feel something. Not fear, not separation, but truth. That we are, all of us, midwives of a new earth. That the pain we're witnessing in the world and within ourselves is the sound of old systems breaking open. That every solar flare, every frequency spike, every moment of overwhelm is part of the labor, the birth. Ram Dass would look at the hyperconnectivity, the algorithmic insanity, the AIs writing poems, and the spiritual influencers selling sage by the ounce, and he'd smile knowingly. He'd say, the only thing that liberates is love. He'd say, you don't need to escape the illusion, you just need to see it clearly and stop believing it's you. He'd remind you that the ego's death is not your death, and that being nobody is the doorway to becoming everything. And to those just awakening now, those feeling crazy, lost, raw, or undone, he'd say, perfect, that means it's working. That means the soul's whisper is finally louder than the world's shouting. Keep going. Love yourself more. Serve someone today. And above all, be here now. To close out today's tribute, a closing reflection. Ram Dass may no longer walk this earth in form, but his frequency is everywhere. In the soft breath of a moment fully lived, in the grace of your tears, in the courage to sit still while everything changes. He was never here to lead followers. He came to remind us that we are not broken. We are not separate. We are love, forgetting itself for a moment, so it can fall in love with the journey home. If this message stirred something in you, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's walking their own path of awakening. And tell me in the comments, have you ever read Be Here Now or experienced Ram Dass's teachings? I'd love to know how he touched your life. Let's honor this timeless teacher together. Drop a heart or a praying hands in the comments for Ram Dass. And remember, you don't need to wait for the world to be perfect to be at peace. Be here now. I'll meet you there